Jay, that's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's the flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit. Yo, what is going on? Welcome to Only Football. We are going to go through our recap before the Bears kick off with the Commanders. That is coming up here in 55 minutes. So we're going to go through this pretty quick. We're going to start with the Broncos and Jets. The Broncos beat the Jets 13-11. Now, this was not the game of the week by any means. This was a rough game. Even if you were a Broncos fan, it was a rough game. There's a lot to say about this game as far as if you're a Broncos fan, who to blame and all of that. We're gonna save that for another video. We're just gonna say the Broncos leaned on their defense for this win. Their offense struggled to make an impact. I still feel like Bo Nix isn't being unleashed the way that we want to see him. I think the numbers are misleading. The Broncos are ranked as a top 5 rushing team. I don't believe they're a rushing team. I believe that they are only successful at rushing the football when they first establish the pass and not vice versa. And honestly, I believe yesterday was some kind of experiment that Sean Payton was running in real time to see what would happen if he were to just stick with the run, something that we know he struggles to do when the game feels like it's getting away. That's why when they zoomed in on his play calling sheet, it said run the ball in all caps. This is something he has to remind himself to do. And I think Sean thought that with a team as bad as the Jets, that he could actually try this out and see what happens if I just stick with the run the entire game. What if I don't pivot? Does the running game eventually work, or does it just continue to stall? And the answer was the running game does not eventually work when you don't first establish the pass. The Broncos in the fourth quarter in the Eagles game, they started throwing the ball. They finished the fourth quarter with more passes than runs, whereas earlier in the game, they were running the football more than passing. They have success running the football when they throw the ball, but the run game never really got going in this one. To J.K. Dobbins' credit, he did a good job avoiding negative plays on the ground, but they weren't able to manage positive ones. I just felt like every run got them about 3 yards, which is right around his average on the day. But, with 14 carries for 40 yards, you're definitely leaving something to be desired. And then RJ Harvey continues to be a distant backup. He only had 2 carries on the day. I don't understand that at all, especially considering J.K. Dobbins wasn't having an incredible day. There just wasn't a lot of yards to go around for the receivers. Troy Franklin, 1 catch, 17 yards. The first third down of the game, he picked up and then fumbled the football, which led to 3 immediate points for the Jets. We continued to make mistakes early in football games, whether it was the drop on third down from Cortland Sutton last week against Philly or the fumble this week. Marvin Mims also had a fumble that we were able to recover, but still we had multiple holding penalties. And this is just the first game we've had without Ben Powers, and it's proving to be a much bigger problem than I think we thought. PR I don't even care enough to learn how to pronounce his name. He was so bad that I would be very disappointed if I saw him again next week. He had 3 holding calls. Of course, all of them were at a terrible time when the Broncos had a major gain downfield and ends up, resulting in a punt. We just continued to do that. And the Jets, they just had offensive issues everywhere. Now, I guess the only stat I need to tell you is that the Jets finished this game with -9 passing net yards. That hasn't happened since 19 something, and it's never happened in Jets franchise history. Breece Hall is the workhorse with Braylon Allen on IR. And with the way this offense is trending, though, that is pretty much all you have, okay, on this team. I mean, Garrett Wilson, he had 3 catches for 13 yards. He got a lot of targets, but not a lot of good opportunities. Mason Taylor caught his only target. It's kind of gross to say this, but this team is pretty dependent on garbage time to put up consistent fantasy performers. It was just one of those games that you're never going to rewatch. You're just going to turn the page and hope it never gets talked about again. But the Broncos get the win. They have a 3-game winning streak for what it's worth, including wins against teams like the Bengals and the Jets. They also have the Eagles on the road, although that one may not mean as much to you after the get embarrassed by the Giants on Thursday night. But it's still an impressive win, and you can only beat who you play. Next up, we're going to go to the Rams and the Ravens. And this was a game where the Ravens really felt like their season was on the line. And if they didn't win this game, they were going to have a margin for victory that is arguably just unfair. And the Ravens went out there and they scored 3 points. Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense was the surprising thing in this game. It had one of their weaker performances of the season. This has been a really bad defense lately. And I don't know if it's a testament to Puka Nakua's importance on this offense, because Puka got hurt in the second quarter and the offense was moving the ball more effectively prior to his injury. But Stafford was 17 for 26, only 181 yards and a touchdown, and he lost the fumble. Kyren Williams maintained his clear lead back status. Pretty standard day from him. No big plays on the ground. A few nice blitz pickups, consistent yardage, and he had a really good 4th down reception down the sideline to set up his own touchdown run on the next play. Williams was 13 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown, plus 2 catches for 37 yards through the air. Blake Corum came into the game on the Rams' 3rd possession, as he's done in the past, but Corum injured his ankle on the drive. He did return late in the game, but the injury pretty much impacted his fantasy day. He only had 5 carries for 23 yards. Puka Nacua injured his foot in the second quarter. Like I said, he returned late in the game, but McVay was made no comment about whether the injury impacted his usage and what his status would be moving forward. Davante Adams had more opportunities with Puka Nacua out, and I think that's what was really surprising, is that Davante Adams still finished with a very impressive day. When you look at his fantasy numbers, I think he didn't even hit double digits. Tyler Higbee led the team in receiving yards. So the Ravens did what they needed to do defensively to give their offense a chance to win this game. But when you can't score a single touchdown, it's going to be a tough day. Lamar Jackson is probably the single most important player to any franchise right now. We are seeing now, without Lamar Jackson, this team loses 90% of their games. I mean, I'm so shocked to see that they haven't even been able to maintain 500 or something respectable. They're just getting their ass kicked every single week. The Rams have made a handful of first half mistakes that gave the Ravens an opportunity to hang around, but the Ravens couldn't capitalize on any of them. They only managed a 3-3 halftime tie before making their own third quarter mistakes. And then the Rams got a 2-possession lead, and then they just cruise control from there. Derrick Henry had a good game on the ground, and this was one of my keys to victory. I mentioned before this game that the Ravens were something insane. I think it was like 19-1 in games where Derrick Henry had 90 or more rushing yards, and the Rams have been really good at stopping the run. So I thought that was a key to victory for the Ravens, and he ends up having 24 carries for 122 yards, and yet it didn't result in a win. So now they're 19-2 or whatever. As Dave Flowers was the primary target in the passing game, he's kind of been dragged down by offensive struggles. He had a lost fumble in this game, which was actually pretty important, I think, when you go back and see that was just kind of like the nail in the coffin. Mark Andrews continues to play as the top tight end ahead of Isaiah Likely. But overall, the Ravens, I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from the hole they've dug themselves into. But another bad performance by the Baltimore Ravens, and they are probably done for the year. But I wouldn't rule out a 12-game winning streak when Lamar Jackson comes back. We just know what he's capable of. The Cowboys and the Panthers. The Cowboys get into shootouts with everyone. It doesn't matter whether it's a good offense or not. You will be when you're playing the Cowboys. Dak Prescott was great. He's been great all season. I think he should be considered MVP. I'm not kidding. I think Dak Prescott is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, probably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. I remember he was in the 70s in the top 100. Only being 14 months removed from coming in second place in MVP voting. I don't know why, it's like he got fired on his day off. We all just demoted him as a good quarterback because he was injured last year. I mean, the Cowboys are missing CeeDee Lamb, who's still out with an injury, but George Pickens, 168 yards and a touchdown. This is what Dak Prescott does. George Pickens never looked this good in Pittsburgh. Look at how good George Pickens looked. He's playing like a true number one wide receiver. And this was something I said before the Eagles and Cowboys game week 1 is, what's George Pickens going to look like with a legit quarterback? And that's exactly what Dak Prescott is. He's so physical at the catch point that it always stands out. Every time you see him make a catch, there's somebody close to him and they're just getting mossed or outmanned by him. He had a really fun athletic hurdle down the sideline in one of his catches. I'm really interested to see how the offensive philosophy will change when CeeDee Lamb comes back with two essentially top 10 wide receivers right now, maybe even top 7. For the other pass catchers, Jake Ferguson kept his consistency on track. I said it a couple of weeks ago. Jake Ferguson is just a starting tight end, set and forget until proven otherwise. Although I think they were not able to replicate his monster games, that he's had. We saw Jake Ferguson go over 100 yards, only 33 yards, but the touchdown, I still think he's somebody you can rely on every single week. The ground game never got going for the Cowboys, and this is something with Javonte Williams that's becoming a trend. It's like he has one of these games where you're like, is he the best running back this year? And then he has 13 carries for 29 yards, 5 catches for 5 yards. And, this may be his first disappointing day in terms of fantasy production. But this has been there if you were looking close enough. Like his game against the Cowboys, he had 2 touchdowns on the goal line. And then you looked at his average yards per carry and you said, okay, well, what would have happened if, the Cowboys weren't set up on the 1 yard line? If he didn't have those 2 touchdowns, this is the answer. You'd have a game like this. And this is something that I've been warning people about that have Javonte Williams. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I think he's definitely putting together his best season since maybe his rookie year. But there's still 13 carries for 29 yards in a pretty, insignificant yard per carry in a couple of his games. Ricky Dowdle was really the star of the show in this game. He was picking up 7 yards on first down runs the entire game. Credit to the blocking, but also I felt like Dowdle was maximizing the lanes he was given. Great revenge game. You almost wonder, like, hey, can he play like this every single week? I mean, he finished with 30 carries, 183 yards. He had 4 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. He definitely deserves to be starting even once Chuba Hubbard returns from injury. Bryce Young was also good today, as are most quarterbacks going against the Cowboys. His job was made pretty easy. Just how effective Dowdle was made it that way. I feel like I call him T-Mac because I can never pronounce his first name. His one interception actually hit T-Mac in the hands. Young was 17 for 25, 199 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception only. So Jimmy Horn, he's getting more opportunities in the offense. His speed stands out. He took an end around for 11 yards, and then Xavier Legette had 2 catches, or I'm sorry, 2 targets today. I would like to see more from a guy that they drafted, I believe in the first round, if not high second round. This is somebody that should be playing a bigger role than 2 targets. He's been unimpressive this season. He probably is going to be sent to the bench when Jalen Coker returns from IR. But I feel like if you're only giving him 2 targets, how can you blame him? Although maybe he's just not getting the separation. I haven't looked deep enough, to give a cold answer on that. But I will say the Carolina Panthers, this was a huge win for the program. This is one that they would lose in the past. It's good to see their offense start to click. It's good to see them get a real running game. This is what I saw in the Panthers when I predicted them to win their division before the season started. We'll see if they can build from here. But Dak Prescott, all he can think is, man, what if I had a defense? What if I had Patrick Surtain instead of Micah Parsons? You know what I mean? Like, the Broncos gave up -9 net yards, passing yards the whole game. He's like, dude, we're giving up 500 a game. That's crazy. But man, it's sad to see. It reminds me of what we saw with Joe Burrow, where they're just wasting his best season. This does feel like one of Dak's best years. We'll see if the Cowboys can just become a mediocre defense and they'll be a playoff team. The Cardinals and the Colts. I thought the Cardinals, the big story for me, and I wanted to be careful how I said this, but I felt like the Cardinals looked a lot more impressive with Kyler Murray out with a foot injury. Jacoby Brissett and his backup skill position players had the ball inside the Colts 10 with a minute to go in this game and a chance to win it. They lost Marvin Harrison to a concussion. By the way, he ends up coming back in the game, and then he gets hit again, and then he's out with the concussion. I'm like, wait, why was he back in the game? The first concussion, his head hit the ground way harder, and then he's back out on the field, and then he has, maybe half of the impact, and then he's like out because, of course, that's like 2 in a row. And I'm just been disappointed with the concussion protocol this year because it was the same thing we saw. I think it was on Monday Night Football with no, it was Thursday Night Football with Jackson Dart, who was clearly, he had his head so hard on the turf that he had to, lay there for a minute and a half just for him to go into the medical tent, and then Brian Dable to keep walking in there and go, what's going on? What's going on? The medical guy keeps kicking him out. It's like, dude, like, I get why you feel that way, but you can't act like that. Like, it makes you look so terrible. Like, first things first, player health and safety. It has to be the first important thing. Okay? Look at Dan Campbell for comparison. In the playoff game, when Jared Goff threw, I believe it was a pick 6, and he was trying to make a play, and he got hit so hard that he had to go into the medical tent. And when they asked him about it, he was like, oh, I was already ready to go, to my next quarterback. I didn't think he was coming back after that hit, and safety is the most important thing. I was shocked that he was going to continue to play. It was like the first quarter. And like that's how you're supposed to act. You're not supposed to be harassing your own medical staff about whether or not your player's going to play because Russell Wilson sucks. Sorry, get a better backup. Um, but I'm like, what is going on lately? Marvin Harrison comes back in the game and then he goes out with a concussion. I'm like, that's his second concussion. I don't know why they're calling it, whatever. We'll move on. Michael Wilson missed some time with his own injury, but he did eventually return to the game. And then Zay Jones stepped up to the challenge. He was Brissett's primary target on some of the key touchdown drives in the second half. He was as shifty as I remember him being, and I'm not really sure why there hasn't been more of him, for Arizona up to this point, but it doesn't matter who's under center. Trey McBride is a key player in the passing game, and he shows up every single week. I also like what I saw from Greg Dortch, who had a drag route that gave the Cardinals a third quarter lead. The Cardinals running backs are unimpressive. Bam Knight, somebody I picked up from waivers like 20 minutes before kickoff because he was, ruled the starter. It wasn't really the starter by much. He only had 2 more carries than Carter, and they both had 34 yards. And then one had 20 yards in one catch. The other one had 2 catches for 30 yards. I mean, both of them are just not very reliable in fantasy terms. And for just the Cardinals, they just really need a better answer at running back. Colts, it was kind of a slow start offensively. They scored a touchdown on their first drive, but they went 3 and out on their next 2 possessions, and then they had an interception. And then they decided to lean harder on Jonathan Taylor and then rightening the ship the rest of the way. And I mentioned this, like, the Colts are one of the most balanced teams in the NFL. They are. They're not one of. They're the most balanced team in the NFL. They run and pass. It's about a 50-50 split. Yet they're the only team that's top 5 in both categories. Tyler Warren is the top target in this offense, and he's consistent on a weekly basis. I think he's been the most impressive rookie at any skill position this season, and he's already a top NFL tight end. Jonathan Taylor is on track to win Offensive Player of the Year. I thought Alec Pierce, who returned from injury, and Adonai Mitchell was made a healthy scratch. Pierce was pretty good because he adds a downfield element that the team is missing when he's not there. Pierce played alongside Michael Pittman and Josh Downs in 3 wide receiver sets, and then Josh Downs got his first touchdown of the season, and he was finding success winning separation with his quickness. The weird part of this whole game was when the story came out that Anthony Richardson broke his eye socket in pregame warmups. I'm sorry, I'm not even laughing, but I didn't even know you could break your eye socket. Something with a rubber leg band. He should be out for at least a couple of weeks, but I guess when it rains, it pours. The Seahawks and Jaguars. This was my don't touch it of the week. Some people were saying, no, the Jags are going to win. Trust me. I didn't feel good about this one. The Seahawks end up winning 20-12. Sam Darnold's playing at a very high level for Seattle right now. He's more of a take what the defense gives you kind of player, but he also has no issue pushing the ball downfield. As a matter of fact, I think he leads all quarterbacks in throws that are 20 yards or more. And a big reason for that is JSN, who is leading the NFL in those targets. I remember when he was coming out of college, they said his speed was a concern because he ran a 4.5. He's just running past coverage out there every single week. He had a 61-yard touchdown reception halfway through the second quarter, which sparked the offense. Cooper Kupp, he hauled in a touchdown today. He's the wide receiver 2 for Seattle, and his weekly usage leaves him, more of a flex play. But he's definitely lost a step, but he still does have more to give in the NFL. I thought he made a really good catch in this game. Torrey Horton did not catch a pass today, but he's the wide receiver 3. That's just crazy target concentration in this offense. That you're getting all the targets going to JSN, essentially, two to Cooper Kupp, 3 to AJ Barner, and then nothing to Torrey Horton. The thing is, the Jaguars' offense just didn't feel in sync today, and this is something that I had been saying. The Jacksonville Jaguars offensively remind me of the Broncos, where they rank top 5 in rushing yards. But when you watch them play, it doesn't feel like they can run the ball whenever they want, however they want. It feels like they kind of rely on the passing game to get going, but that's also not reliable. Um, every week it kind of feels like you're getting now their floor is a lot higher. But I just feel like the running game being ineffective for some of the same reasons why Trevor Lawrence was under constant pressure. There isn't much room to run. Travis Etienne had 12 carries for 27 yards. And with Liam Cohen, he's going to try to run the football. He loves running the football. He wants to stay balanced, but sometimes there's just nothing there. And you don't want to become one-dimensional, so you just stick with it, and it never really gets going. There's the injury to Brenton Strange. There was some expectations that Hunter Long would see an expanded role. That didn't come to fruition. 10 players caught passes for the Jaguars. Notably, Travis Hunter caught 4. He was second on the team in targets, but most receptions were screen passes, and they didn't really go anywhere. He only finished with 15 yards. Parker Washington had a couple catches, but the Jags were put in a worse situation than they ideally should have been into, because Cam Little missing an extra point and a field goal. That was his only 2 attempts on the day. I was making a joke, like, this guy can kick it from 70, but for some reason, an extra point, it's too close. The Chargers and the Dolphins, 22-27. Chargers get the win, and they stop the bleeding for now. They came into this game losing 2 in a row. They finally get a win. The Chargers offense hasn't looked this capable in weeks. The Dolphins are an exploitable team, but it's great for the Chargers to get a little bit of momentum going. Herbert is really a high-end QB. He had more time before pressure than he's been allowed in previous weeks. And I gave you the stat that Justin Herbert throws with a healthy Joe Alt. With a healthy Joe Alt, Justin Herbert throws about 52% of his passes under 2.5 seconds. When Joe Alt isn't on the field, that number goes to almost 70%, 68% of his passes. So the whole identity of this offense changes. They start throwing the ball really quick to try to combat the pass rush, and that's just exactly what we saw. I told you, out of the running backs between Hassan Haskins and Vidal, to start Vidal. That was my big nugget of information that I said, because he went to Michigan and he played with Harbaugh. He started at running back, and that is exactly what I should have done. But because there was 2 running backs, for some reason, with 5 minutes left to go, I took Vidal and I dropped him for the running back who was starting in the Cardinals game in Bam Knight, and I swapped him out. I have no idea why. I guess I assumed that Bam Knight didn't have competition, and Hassan Haskins and Vidal were going to battle 50-50. I should have left it alone, because Vidal finished with 18 carries for 124 yards, and he had 3 catches for 14 yards and a touchdown. I would have won this week if I just left the frickin' roster alone. I'm getting madder just talking about it, because I'm realizing I would have won this week had I just left it alone. My own source, my own investigation. I came to my own conclusion, and then at the very last second, I just pivot for no reason. The Dolphins had a heartbreaking loss. They were at home. Tua, we're going to talk about this kind of stuff later, but Tua, man, he made some comments after the game about, player-only meetings, and if they need to be mandatory because certain players aren't showing up. And Mike McDaniel said, that's no place for him to be talking about it, and heavy is the crown. we're going to get into all of that. But just for right now, Devon Achan's the best player in this offense. I called it when we were in the draft. He was my player that I wanted Denver to take, and instead we took somebody else that I can't remember, and the Dolphins were on the clock next, and they took Achane. Ever since then, I've been wishing that the Broncos took Achane. He had his longest touchdown in a while with a 49-yard touchdown, virtually untouched. This guy is a freak of nature. I swear, like, Achane gets better every time I see him play. Jalen Waddle's not the shifty athlete that Tyreek Hill is, but he's doing pretty well as the clear number one wide receiver, 6 catches, 95 yards, no touchdowns, and he did have a drop early in the game that resulted in an interception, but he made for it by being the go-to guy for the rest of the day. And he had the best catch of the year in the NFL. So far on a deep pass where he had to change the shoulder. He was tracking the ball over, and then he caught it while on his back. Very surprised after the game to see that Darren Waller was only targeted 3 times officially. I think there were at least 2 more that didn't count due to penalties because it felt like he was the go-to player as the number 2 receiver behind Jalen Waddle. And then Malik Washington is the 4th option in the passing game. He had 4 targets. Browns and Steelers. Gosh, does it get any more ugly? Yeah, it does. Broncos, Jets. This was the Steelers' first game coming out of the bye week, and now the Steelers have 4 wins. This was the first time Quinshon Judkins couldn't find room to run. The Steelers were loading the box and daring Dillon Gabriel to beat them. He couldn't. Gabriel needs to improve his downfield passing. The Steelers defense did a good job making Gabriel uncomfortable. Pretty much every key receiver for the Browns had at least 1 drop of a very on target passes. It felt like there was a few plays that, whether it was Jerry Jeudy or David Njoku, that you just wanted back. That they needed to take advantage of every opportunity, and they didn't. Jerry Jeudy had a team-high 13 targets, only 5 catches, though. And then some opportunities arise for Harold Fannin because David Njoku picked up an injury, and then he was in and out of the lineup for a lot of the game, especially late in the game. Aaron Rodgers for the Steelers. He's not going to win another MVP in his career, but I really like him as a quarterback for the Steelers. This is why I took the Steelers to win this division. We saw what the Steelers were able to do last year with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and maybe that didn't mean much to you guys, but it meant a lot to me because I understand, I'm very sensitive to how bad Russell Wilson really is. And I know Justin Fields is, maybe even worse. So the fact that they were 10-1, I thought, wow, man, I'm all in on the Aaron Rodgers thing. I really am. And you saw Aaron Rodgers have a really good play, good touchdown throw where he's rolling out, telling his receiver to go that way, and then throwing the ball. Just an old school backyard football play. Love to see it. DK Metcalf, he's the focal point in the passing game, and he had a touchdown, 95 yards. Calvin Austin missed this game with an injury, but they had a rotation of different players to fill in. You saw some Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington had 3 catches for 62 yards. There was actually a play action pass completed to Darnell Washington on the very first play. So overall, we didn't learn anything new about the Steelers, but they continue to win, and not a shocker, the Browns continue to lose. The Patriots and the Saints, this game, I felt like this game was going to be close for no reason. It was. Drake May's playing like a very high-end quarterback. It reminds me of Justin Herbert, and I said going into this year that I had the Patriots winning about 10 games. I think Drake May is I'm not saying he's Josh Allen, but I'm saying I think he has the potential to be that. I think right now he reminds me more of a Justin Herbert. But either way, these are 2 guys that you really want to be compared to. I think this is a guy that can elevate an offense. I think he can make receivers better. And credit Josh McDaniels because he is calling plays consistently where the running back or the tight end is getting a chip on the edge rushers that is buying a little more time for Drake May to be pushing the ball downfield. And look, the deep ball is working. And a lot of that is because he is stepping up, sliding in the pocket, delivering great throws, and he is connecting on, a handful of deep passes in this game. He had a few more, but they came back with penalties. But Drake May was 18 for 26, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just a really good, clean game from him. He's arguably better when he gets to show his ability to make plays on the move, whether it's like taking off for a scramble or sliding up in the pocket, just kind of like off the off ball plays, backyard football, make it up as you go football. He is good at that. Ramondre Stevenson, he's the starter again. Trayvon Henderson's getting work behind him. Both of them are averaging like 3.5 yards a carry or something, maybe 4.2, whatever it is. It's like 41 and 42. They're very, very unimpressive stats. Stephon Diggs took a back seat today, only 3 targets. You saw Demario Douglas with 3 catches, 71 yards. And then Booty was the primary outside player. He had 5 catches for 93 yards. But the Saints, they feel like the most complete team with 0 or 1 wins this year. Spencer Rattler is really playing well for them. Look, sometimes you're playing the best you can. You're doing the best you can with what you got, and it's just not enough, right? Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller, the backfield's been pretty close to 50-50 split in terms of carries the past couple of weeks, but that's more because Alvin Kamara has been dealing with an injury. He was questionable going into this game. I think it's fair to say that the Saints have the right coach. I like Kellen Moore. Look at the Eagles without him, right? Coordinators matter, and Kellen Moore, I'm just so glad somebody finally gave him an opportunity. But for the Saints, they got a lot of work to do. So far, they are going to just consider this first year a grace period, I think, for Kellen Moore. No one's expecting them to be a playoff team this year. All right, next up, and I got to go through these pretty quick because we got Monday Night Football right around the corner. We got the Raiders beating the Titans, and this is why Brian Callahan is fired. Brian Callahan is fired. We had a better day from Geno Smith, who stayed upright, played efficiently outside of one bad decision that ended up in a turnover. Better is relative, but he's been one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league for the last couple of weeks. So I think this game is a start, no matter if it was against Tennessee or not. Genty could have had a good day, but I just feel like they're just not running in the middle of the defense. If they could run away from Jeffrey Simmons, that might help. I think I said that backwards. If they were to run away from the middle of the defense where Jeffrey Simmons was, Jeffrey Simmons is a really good defensive player. I don't know if people realize how good he is because when you're on a bad team, sometimes you just don't get the credit you deserve. Genty still had 75 yards and a touchdown. Brock Bowers still out with a knee injury, but Michael Mayer was back. He showed much of the offense, good tight end. And Trey Tucker is really becoming a weekly presence. Jacoby Myers is consistent as well, but once again, kind of fell in the low end of his weekly range. But for the Titans, Cam Ward, he shows off his potential every week. He does. Like, he's the guy. 26 for 38, 222 yards. It's just not going to happen this year. Tony Pollard's still the starting running back. Tyjae Spears was more involved, but they just have a lot of work that they need to do. Tennessee's going to have a full rebuild. And whoever the coach is that's hired next, it's going to be dependent on his ability to recruit a good staff. The GM for the Titans, who came from Kansas City, he saw Andy Reid put together a really good staff. That's why they always would lose coordinators that had coaching jobs. That is what he's going to want the new head coach to do. How good can you recruit and how good of a staff can you build? The 49ers remain without key offensive players. Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Javon Jennings, whatever. One target. It's getting really difficult, but the 49ers are just really gritty. I mean, whether it's Jake Tunges, who stepped up with 6 catches, 58 yards. Kendrick Bourne had 142. They have back-to-back 140-yard games. Christian McCaffrey continues to find no room on the ground, but makes up for it in the passing game. But the Bucs, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans both missed this game due to injury. Emeka Egbuka left with a hamstring injury, did not return. Jalen McMillan is on IR and has no timetable for his return. So, I mean, it was Cameron Johnson, the return specialist, that led the Bucs in receiving yards, and Cade Otton, who was targeted more than any other player on the team. And then Tez Johnson, Bo Nix's brother, got a step deep and made an amazing full extension touchdown grab, an amazing catch. But good to see Tez Johnson get his first touchdown in a way like that, because that was just a baller play. And then Baker Mayfield, he should be the MVP front runner. He does it every single week. Bucky Irving even missed this game. No problem. I'll get it done. He had a scramble in this game, and everybody knows exactly which one I'm talking about. It's just what he does, and Baker Mayfield should be the best odds to win MVP right now. Packers get a win over the Bengals. The Bengals try to come back late in this game, but too little too late. I think the Packers, after starting really hot, have kind of let up a little bit. I think they'll still be considered a top 10 team right now, but they're on the fringe of it because they're not really beating teams in a way that's like a statement win. Noah Fant had some opportunities. Chase Brown and Samaje Perine played a relatively even split. Of course, Perine gets a lot of the passing situation snaps. No shocker there. But this was Joe Flacco's first game. It just doesn't really feel like an upgrade over Jake Browning. I'm surprised that they made this trade, but I guess the Bengals felt like we can only lose a couple more games before it's unrealistic to ask, Joe Burrow to fix it and get us in the playoffs. So desperate calls for desperate measures. So Packers get the win. Josh Jacobs is a very good running back. Christian Watson is getting pretty close to returning at wide receiver, but for now it's still Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, Tavion Wicks. Tucker Kraft showed a pretty good effort to get in the end zone, but hard to learn something from a win over the Bengals. Sorry if that's too harsh for our Bengal fans. Then we had Sunday Night Football. After a poor start to the season, the Chiefs are playing good football. I hate to say it, but they are. It starts with Mahomes. Mahomes is elevating every decent offensive roster starter, and that's what he does. Let's just face it. One of the guys I really like is Tyquan Thornton. He had no targets, which I only highlight because I've been thinking that he's playing well enough to maintain a role in the offense, but no targets. Whatever. Travis Kelce had a big game. Taylor Swift was in the booth, and she was up there with what's her name? The Iowa star. You guys know who I'm talking about. I'm blanking on her name. So maybe he told Patrick Mahomes, hey, I need to have a big game today. I mean, Caitlin Clark, I need to have a big game today. All right, help a brother out. Give me some targets. And he did. Juju, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, they were the primary receivers. And the Lions, it was the perfect storm for them. They had a touchdown that was called back because of some logistical reason with the quarterback not lining up before going out. So logistically, then they had a couple big plays that were called back from a holding penalty. Their offense wasn't on the field a lot. Thought that they didn't see that many opportunities. Like, it was not uncommon for both teams to have the ball once and then the quarter to be over. So I still feel like the Lions are the better team. I just feel like the Chiefs were able to win this one. If they played again tomorrow, I would take the Lions. The other thing is Jared Goff is such a good freaking quarterback. I just see the throws he makes when I'm watching the replay, and I go, why is that like normal? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, look at this throw. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, dude, he is throwing in these tiny pocket windows, you know, in these specific layers of the defense. Like, it is truly a thing of art. And I don't know. I just want to say, I think Jared Goff is just a very, 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 very good quarterback. Very good quarterback. I want to make that super clear because I don't feel like we give him enough credit. I really don't. But yeah, those were Sunday's games yesterday. Let me know what one you guys liked, what one you didn't like. Me and Rick, we're going to be live here in about 10 minutes for the Bears and the Commanders. I love you guys. I will see you guys on the Monday Night Football stream. That's all I got for now. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. I'll see you guys in a little bit.